Dragon Ball Z Budokai 2. Now this game is the second of the trilogy of Budokai games, and this one is phenomenal just like the first one that I already covered. Now there definitely is some things that I like better in Budokai 2 from Budokai 1, and then there's some things that I also feel like we're lacking a bit in this game, and I'll cover those in this video. Now in this video, this will be the same as the first one. I'll be covering the GameCube version of the game. That's just the version that I have. So I also have an emulator for as well, so I can play it on that for ease of recording. And so yeah, this one is the GameCube version. As far as I know, there's no differences between the GameCube version from the PlayStation 2 version. But if there is, then you guys can let me know down in the comments below. Now this game, for me, like the first game, was just the absolute blast of nostalgia. I used to play all three of the Budokai games at my one friend's place growing up so much. We played all those games, and then we played the Budokai Tenkaichi series as well, which I also have the second and third game on the Wii, so I definitely plan on covering the second and third game at the very least in the future. And but yeah, no, this game is just so nostalgic. Seeing this opening scene when you start up the game is just phenomenal and brings back so many memories. I mean, the music is incredible in the game, and it's just a phenomenal 2D fighting game. Now, I definitely think it was just because I was super out of practice when I was playing the first game. I hadn't played any of these games in so many years. Like I had said in that video, I think the last time I would have played a Dragon Ball Z Budokai game would have been on the HD remaster, probably in like 2015 or 2016. So it's been a long time, and I was definitely rusty in the first game. So this game felt a whole mile easier than the first game. And I think that's definitely due to the fact that the gameplay itself is very similar to the first game. So here's all the modes in the main menu. You have your Dragon World, which is like your story mode. You have your one-on-one dueling mode, World Tournament, training, edit your skills, and options. So very similar to the first game. As I covered in the first Budokai video that I did on the first game, in the first game, the major difference between this game and the first game is that they reanimated a pile of the main scenes from the Dragon Ball Z anime, which I thought was absolutely incredible, and I talked about a lot. I just thought it was so cool, and to see the quality and effort that they put in to reanimate all the major cutscenes. And then in Dragon Ball Z Budokai 2, as you can see, this is your story mode. It is basically a world map that you can move little characters around, so you get to pick one or two partners depending on what part of the story you're in, and then you move around the map and either have to complete a task of defeating an enemy, collecting an item, or so be it. Most of the time it's just defeating an enemy though. And one of the other major differences is they added the Buu arc basically sort of into this game. What do I mean by sort of is everything's not aligned perfectly with the anime story, right? So you got these characters that you can move around the map freely, so you definitely can take on certain events or get to see certain dialogue by taking on an enemy, and then if you avoid that enemy, you'll miss that dialogue or scenario, right? So they added Buu into this game as the final boss in the game, which is awesome. I definitely really like Super Buu and Kid Buu. Like, those are my favorite forms of Buu in the anime, and so it was awesome to get to battle Kid Buu as the final boss. It's definitely a very hard final boss battle. I definitely struggled with it a little bit, but really cool to see that they added Buu into Budokai 2. So with the world map story mode that they have going on here, it's definitely not linear at all, right? Like, you can move them around the map freely, take on whoever you want, or go to whatever tile you want on the map. Whereas, of course, the first Budokai game was very linear and just followed the anime from the Saiyan saga all the way to the Cell games. So it was the first game is super linear. This game, at least, there's definitely a lot more replay value, I would say, to this game, because you can move freely around the map, and I do believe that some characters are only unlocked if you defeat them with a specific character. So you have to defeat a specific character with Krillin, or you have to defeat a specific character with Gohan. So I believe there's some characters in this game that are only unlocked that way, so there's definitely some replay value if you want to unlock all the characters. Now, another point I wanted to touch on is when you're in the fights here, as you can see, the animations are a little bit different. The style of the characters that they went with was a little bit different. As you can see, there's like a black line around them, and they look a little bit more like the anime. They don't look, as they did in the first game where they looked like video game designs and models. So it definitely was different. That was the major look difference that I noticed with this game, is the style of how the characters looked. Definitely was a lot different than the first game. Now, the length of the Dragon World mode in this game is definitely, I found, quite a bit longer than the story mode in the first game. The story mode in the first game, I would say, only took me maybe 4 or 5 hours to complete, basically through the first string of sequences. So the first run through the story mode, it only took me maybe 4 to 5 hours, and then of course you can go back and play other missions that you weren't able to play originally when you first played through the story mode in the first game. Whereas this game, I found that it definitely took me a little bit longer. The first few stages were pretty quick, but then as you got to the last 3 stages, I would say, definitely took a little bit longer, and they were probably an hour each for me to complete, as some of the bosses that you face off against you have to defeat a few times in order to actually finish off the stage. As you may have noticed, there's little bars next to each character. So those little green bars that you see, or little green squares that you see, that's basically your life counter. So if you have three out of the 5 little squares next to your character, then you can take 3 defeats before you're knocked out. But if you do get defeated back to back 2 times in a row, even though you have 3 little square counters on your life gauge, then you will lose. So that's another thing as well, is if you get defeated back to back, then you lose more of your little life counter. I'm not sure what they're actually called in the game, but I just know that there's those little squares, and that's basically your life counter that you have. So you definitely have to keep track of that when you're playing through this game. I also found playing Budokai 2, now it could just be that I was practiced up after playing the first game, but I actually do think there was a difference in feel in the gameplay. I feel like the gameplay was more polished, and what do I mean by that? I just felt like it was easier to hit my combos, so whether the game was better at detecting my certain button presses or what the deal was, I'm not too sure, but I just found that Budokai 2, after playing Budokai 1, felt a lot more polished and easier to handle and better to handle, if that makes sense. So not to say that Budokai 1 was not an easy handling game, it was a phenomenal game, and it definitely is one of the best fighting games out there for sure. But I just felt like it was easier to hit the combos and easier to dodge attacks in this game. And like I said, it could be very well that I was just out of practice when I was playing through the first game and doing up that video. But I do definitely think it was polished up a little bit, and they definitely made the gameplay a little bit better. Now here we get into the Boo part of the gameplay, where I'm taking on Kid Boo, and he's the final boss in Dragon World, and he is no pushover. It is a very, very hard final boss. He has a lot of health bars, so I think he has 4 or 5 health bars, I think. So on the top there, you see how his bar is yellow. When the health bar turns yellow, then that means they only have 2 more full bars before they get knocked out. And then when you have green, then that means you have 3 health bars before you get knocked out, essentially. So once you get your green bar knocked out, then it turns down to yellow, as you just saw with Gohan. And I believe Boo has 4 or 5 health bars. So every single time you take on him, at least after he loses a health point, or the first time you battle him, then he has 4 or 5 health bars, and it is super hard to take down Boo. The computer is really smart. So definitely a very, very tough final boss. But on this final stage, basically to help yourself out, you get to pick 2 partners alongside Goku. So I went with Gohan and then Trunks, because those are my 2 best characters besides Goku. And so I went with Gohan and I went with Trunks, and then basically on the map there, you can see the little Dende on the right side. If you land on a icon with Dende, then he will give you 1 extra health point, which is those little squares that you have, those little green squares that you have next to your little character icon in the world map. And so you can just basically not really cheese, but you can kind of cheese the game in a sense by just making sure you have all 3 of your characters. Keep going back onto a Dende icon and then go off of it, and then go back onto a Dende icon and then go off of it, and just keep doing that until you get max health points before you take on Kid Buu. So that's honestly, not gonna lie, that's what I did just to make sure I had the best chance of taking down Kid Buu. But at least in this game, I will say that it has a very, very good difficulty scaling. Like Kid Buu, yeah, the final stage, Kid Buu is super tough. But you have quite a few stages before that are much easier, and it just gradually gets a little bit harder each stage. So you definitely get the required practice to be able to be successful in the final Buu battle. So it definitely, the difficulty scaling, I would say, is like just right. It's not way out to lunch where it's just all of a sudden you're taking on Buu and you have like no practice and you don't know any combos or anything at that point. Like, no, you have a good amount of practice, and the scaling's really, really good and definitely prepares you for the final battle with Buu. So now that was my final takedown on Buu. I knocked down all his health points. So after you defeat Buu 4 times, I believe it was, then you basically are done the Dragon World mode. So you've won the Dragon World mode. You'll see the credits and everything roll, and then you're all finished the story mode in this game. And no, it's definitely a super, super fun story mode to play through, and lots of replay value. Like I said, like with it having the world map, you basically get that sense that you can explore a little bit more than you were able to in the first game, where it's just super linear and goes through all the main scenes from the anime. So definitely lots of replay value in this game with the story mode. So overall, I would say between the first game and second game, the first game I really, really like. Like, I absolutely love the story mode in that game. I think they did a phenomenal job with the reanimated cutscenes. And then in this game, I would say they polished up the gameplay just that much more, and they changed it up just enough to keep you interested as the player, right? So all in all, I love both of these games. I highly recommend you guys check them out. Lastly, I just wanted to say thank you guys so much. This will probably be my last video before the new year. So I hope you guys all enjoy the holidays and enjoy some time with your family, some rest and relaxation. I'm definitely looking forward to just getting some rest and relaxing a little bit over the holidays, eating some good food. So it'll be a lot of fun. Anyways, I hope you guys all enjoyed the video. And if you did, please leave a like, subscribe for more, and I'll see you all in the new year.